360 flips, or tray flips, are not easy. Let's just get that out there. They're tough to learn. Probably the second hardest trick to learn that everyone who's decent at skateboarding can do after the kick flip. Before you try and learn tray flips, you gotta know how to kick flip pretty consistently. Go check out my kick flip tutorial first if you can't kick flip. You also want to know how to pop shove it. Those are the only two tricks you absolutely have to have, but honestly you should probably be able to do front side and back side 180s and varial kick flips as well, and be really comfortable on your skateboard when you start trying to learn tray flips. This is a trick that requires quite a bit of general board control. Let's start with foot placement and weight distribution. Here's how I set up. The front foot is pointy like for a kick flip, but it's further down the board. The back foot is straight with the toes hanging off the toe side of the board. The back foot is key for the tray flip. This trick is done almost entirely with the back foot, so it's really important to have it right. You know that spot where your toes connect to your foot? The edge of your tail should be lined up perfectly with that divot between your toes and the ball of your foot. When first learning tray flips, it might be easier to have your feet closer together like this. As with any flip trick, experiment with slightly different foot placement as you learn to speed up the process. Something like this is best for me though. You'll want to have more weight on your back foot for this trick than for most other tricks. I'd say you want about 70% of your weight on the back foot. The way you have your weight should create a sort of tension between your front and back foot diagonally across the board like this. It should feel like the board is bending between your feet along the direction of the red line. Be sure your back foot is hanging off and that the edge of the tail is lined up with the divot between your foot and toes. So now for the motion. It's almost always described as a scoop, and that's pretty much on point. Instead of popping straight down, you want to sort of sweep the tail back with your toes in this direction. You still drive the board downwards like you're popping for a kick flip, but you also have to sweep or scoop the back foot. Take a look at how I'm scooping here. Notice how my heel is actually a little bit off the tail. You're pretty much using just your toes and like the space between your toes and the ball of your foot, the divot, to do the scoop. It sort of almost feels as if you're grabbing the edge of the tail with your toes as you do the scoop. From the top of the board, the motion is going to look something like this. The flick for the tray flip is pretty similar to the kick flip. There is one key difference though. The flick for the tray flip should be gentler. Don't flick it as hard as you would for a kick flip. Just let your ankle be flimsy and try to do a lazy version of the flick you normally do for kick flips. Let's look closer at the scoop. You shouldn't just be trying to scoop the board down and back, but also forward as well. Watch how my toes sort of drag the board and push it in the direction that I'm riding when I do the scoop. At the exact moment you do the scoop, try and put a lot of pressure on your toes. You should be pushing down so hard with your toes for that split second that your wheel is touching, or at least close to touching, your board. Like I was saying, try and think of it as if you're grabbing the edge of the tail with your toes and then throwing the board forward or slinging the board forward from the edge of the tail where you're grabbing it. It should feel almost as if even that your toe is getting a little bit underneath the board and you're sort of underflipping it a little bit. Make sure that your shoulders are really squared up with the skateboard. You don't want your shoulders open towards the direction you're riding. You want them to be exactly lined up with the skateboard. Also make sure that you're not bending too far over your knees. You want to stand up fairly straight for the tray flip. You don't want your head to be like parallel with the ground. Try to have your body's weight as upright as possible without too much weight over your knees or over the toe side of your skateboard, and also without having too much weight sort of on your butt and towards the heel side of your skateboard. Make sure you're not jumping forward when you scoop too much, or you'll end up going out in front of your skateboard and the skateboard will land behind you, or you'll land on the nose of the skateboard. I have this problem myself. The way to fix that problem is to make sure you're weighting up your back foot enough and that you're sort of jumping either straight up when you do the scoop or even like a little bit backwards. A few final tips. Tray flips are probably not a trick you want to try and learn stationary. I suggest getting a good little bit of speed built up for attempting tray flips. You're going to find that they're really, really difficult to do if you're trying to do them stationary. Another thing is that some people find fakie tray flips easier. You might be one of these people. So if that's so, if you're having a lot of trouble with the regular tray flip, try and learn them fakie so that you can get used to the motion and the feeling of the board flipping like that underneath you. And then once you get them fakie, try doing them regular. If you're having problems or you have questions about the tray flip that I didn't address in the video, feel free to drop those in the comments, and I will do my best to respond to them and provide you with feedback and skate support. As always, if there are any tricks you would like to see a trick tip video on, feel free to drop those in the comments as well.